titled my project Discovering DNA and Genetics Using Action Research because when I designed the project, I originally wanted it to be kind of a PBL unit for my students. Instead of that regular drill and practice to teach my DNA and genetics unit, I wanted them to actually see some like bioethical issues. I wanted them to think about the real life impact. Basically what it all started with, I actually found this book called Abraham Lincoln's DNA and Other Adventures in Genetics. The book is divided up into 6 major sections, and there are like different stories in each section, but it covers lessons about like the history of DNA and like how we've used it to look at changes over periods of time, like what we used to know compared to what we do now. It talks about the justice, how we use DNA in court systems to actually solve cases, looking at forensics issues, things like that. Behavior mechanisms, like how our behavior influences like who we are and what we are, like does it actually code for certain traits, like the actual chemistry behind it. Plants and animals, how we do genetic engineering using all of our new biotechnology, things like that. Diseases, genetic revolutions in medicine, like things that we're doing now that we couldn't do 50 years ago. And then dilemmas, like how we're using genetic technologies and things like biomimicry and all of these different activities to actually tweak things. Very common with food industry right now, with all of these lovely cloning aspects that the kids like to talk about. But it basically is dividing it into those 6 sections. What I did next was I actually sat down and I started doing some research through Carolina Biological Company, and I found 6 lab kits, one that went with each one of the different main topics. And what I plan to do is my kids are going to be introduced in the first 4 days to the units to grade level literature. One of the biggest problems that my kids have is the ability to communicate the information that they actually learn. They can sit and they can take a multiple choice test. They can sit and they can write about it, but they'll tell you things like, well, it does this. Well, what's it and what's it doing? Okay, so one of the things that I did make a point to do is I'm going to divide them up into 6 groups. Each group is going to focus on the grade level literature over each one of those topics. After that transition, or after that 3-day work period, then they're going to transition into like lab groups where they're going to do inquiry-based labs. The only thing that I have to tweak, and this is probably going to be the hardest part for me, is I have to take the 6 lab kits that I ordered from Carolina, and I have to take away those lovely recipe type labs, and I'm actually going to have them design their own inquiry-based lab with the materials that they have. So not only are they going to have the literature, they're going to have a lab to support what they found. One of the things that we're going to be doing with this is they're going to be assessed on the way they can communicate the information to our local community and their peer groups. Every 9 weeks our school has an open house or an academic showcase. This unit falls during our second academic showcase, so I'm going to ask my AP students to come in and they're actually going to present in the lab so they can show, you know, we found these things out bioethically, like issues, concerns that people have in society. We did this research and here's how it's applicable. So one of the things that they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to team teach each other, but it's also going to cause some awareness in our community about, well, hey, this kind of stuff's important, plus it's going to get their parents on board so they can actually see what they've been doing in my room. With project outcome, I do think I'm going to garner some probably just student interest in general for my AP program. I did a project through ARI last year, and I really think that pushed and encouraged my kids because they like this idea of doing research on their own. The only other thing that I am concerned with is this is the first time that I've actually used a novel in class. And not having much of an English background, I'm kind of curious what the kids are going to take away from that with me included in that factor. But this is something that I'm actually kind of excited to see them transition through and use. Any questions?
Questions for a speaker? All right, thank you so much.